It's that new badge. If you've been here before, you know how we doing. If you never been here, I need you in the second line.
How in the world do you get two of your biggest rivals, Nasty C and A. Reese, on the exact same song? I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? Well, for Stogie T, that was just a challenge waiting for a genius-level solution.
And the secret, it was simple and kind of brilliant. He just didn't ask. He didn't ask for permission. Instead, he engineered a situation where the art itself had to come first. This move right here proves he's not just a musician. He's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He gets the culture on a whole other level.
He actually called the whole thing a bit sly, but you know what? It was a calculated risk. He sends the beat to Nasty C. He sends the same beat to A. Reese. He gets both of their verses back. And only then, when he has these two incredible pieces of the puzzle in his hands, does he reveal the final picture. Look, this wasn't about tricking anybody. This was about creating a moment for the culture that was way bigger than any personal beef.
So you have to wonder, what kind of life creates a mind that can pull off moves like that? To really understand the architect, we have to go back, way back, to his foundations, which, believe it or not, were built thousands of miles from home.
Stogie T's entire journey kicks off with a sense of displacement. I mean, he was born in an activist camp in Tanzania. He didn't even step foot in South Africa until he was 13 years old. And that outsider perspective, it became the core of who he is. His way into the culture wasn't through politics or anything like that. It was through his love for Michael Jordan, for basketball, and the hip-hop that was its soundtrack.
And this quote right here just captures his shock perfectly. Imagine, for years you hear these almost mystical stories about your home, the promised land, and then you finally get there and you're driving through Soweto, and the reality is just crushing. That feeling, that gap between the promise and the reality, became this incredibly powerful source of tension and creativity in his work.
So in this totally new and disorienting world, he found his lens. He calls hip-hop dirty, filthy music. And trust me, he means that with the absolute highest respect. The raw aggression, the complex wordplay, the energy of it all. That's what gave him the language he needed to understand and, talk about his new reality. But as he grew, as he evolved, the artist we all knew as Tommy from The Volume, well, he hit a wall. The persona that made him famous had basically become a prison. And this led to one of the most daring, riskiest moves in music, the public death of his own artistic self.
And this change, it was deep. The guy who was once defined by conscious rap, by poetry, by Steve Biko, was now living a life that involved investment banking, cigars, and natural wine. He had changed, but his artistic identity, Toomey, was stuck in the past. That gap between the man and the persona, it just became too massive to ignore. This was his big realization. The Toomey persona had become a relic. It was static, frozen in time. It couldn't grow with him anymore. So he decided to retire it, but respectfully, to put it in a museum where people could admire what it was, while he, the living, breathing artist, could finally move on.
Man, this was a huge risk. He even tells this story about an interviewer who straight up refused to listen to his new album because they'd already decided what Stogie T should sound like. He lost a lot of fans, people were attached to that old ideal, but he made a choice: artistic honesty over guaranteed popularity.
So this whole journey of reinvention, it brought him to a totally new place of wisdom. He's now like an elder statesman in the culture. And he's not just focused on playing the game anymore. He's focused on unlearning some of its most destructive parts.
And here's a really stark example. Take a phrase like spin the block. It's become this cool sounding slang, right? But he points out its incredibly violent origin, its murder language. As a master of words, he feels this responsibility to be way more thoughtful about the language he's putting out into the world.
And his wisdom is built on the shoulders of giants. He calls himself a studied rapper, not a natural talent. And you can see he learned from the absolute best. From Ice Cube, he learned audacity. From Jay-Z, how to adapt. And from Eminem, the power of creating an alias to protect your real self. A lesson he obviously took to heart.
So, with all that said, where does that leave him today? While his whole focus has shifted. It's moved away from the usual signs of success to something much, much deeper. A currency you just can't measure with streams or sales figures.
He has a very clear, very realistic view of what it means to be a creative person today. He says flat out, the music business is now the tech business. His competition isn't just other rappers anymore. It's everything, from a streamer in Ukraine to a viral video of a cat, all fighting for that same tiny slice of your attention.
And get this number he shares from Nasty C is just staggering. Having 5 million followers means almost nothing if the algorithm only lets you actually reach 1% of them. It just perfectly shows you the illusion of fame in our digital world.
So if all the online numbers are basically a lie, what's actually real? For Stogie, it comes down to this. He believes a real legacy isn't some glowing eulogy after you're gone. It's the real, tangible impact you have on the lives of others. It's a success that is lived, not just spoken about.
And that leaves us right here with this final thought. Stogie T's entire journey, from an outsider to an architect, from Toomey to Stogie, it really forces us all to ask a much bigger question. In a world that is obsessed with numbers and metrics, if all of that is just a mirage, what is the true, lasting value of the things we create?
The four horsemen, old kings, new kings.